Mary Cooper's life changed forever when George Cooper Sr. died. The warmth, the stability, the routine the family had built around him all shifted. One of the biggest arcs we're seeing now in Georgie and Mandy's First Marriage Season 2 is Mary beginning to move forward, not forgetting George, not replacing him, but slowly reopening parts of her life that grief had closed off. The show treats this not as a sudden transition, but as a process. Tentative steps, awkward moments, resistance, and gradual acceptance. Let's walk through what is already visible, what is implied, what the emotional cost is, and how I believe Mary's move forward will reshape the Cooper family dynamic. When George died, off-screen in Young Sheldon, following a heart attack, the devastation was immediate. Mary, Georgie, Missy. All of them felt the loss deeply. Mary in particular was left feeling the weight of both being a widow and being the pillar of a family now fractured. It wasn't just the shock of George's death, it was the realization that much of her life, her identity as wife, partner, co-parent in tandem with George, was gone. So the first phase of her grief involved withdrawal, reliving memories, struggling with daily tasks, shouldering not only her own sorrow, but the burden of helping her children cope. Mary's faith, hope, patience all tested. The show makes clear in Season 1, and carried into Season 2, that Mary's grief is not something she can skip over. It's baked into many scenes. Georgie visiting George's grave with family, Mary facing silence in his absence, reminders around the house, his tools, the porch, his chair. These physical reminders force Mary to confront loss, and sometimes the weight is overwhelming. She has moments where she seems stuck, caught between wanting to move forward for her children and wanting George back. If anything, that tension is central. She isn't over it, and she doesn't pretend to be. Instead, what the show suggests is that moving on can coexist with grief. One of the most significant signs of Mary moving forward is that she's considering dating again. According to showrunner Steve Holland, Episode 3 of Season 2, A Will and a Dead Man's Wife, sees Mary seriously considering going out on a date. It's been around 1.5 years since George's death. In the show's timeline, that gives time for grief to settle, though not disappear, and gives Mary a breathing room in which to begin imagining life again, not just maintaining life. The series doesn't treat that decision lightly. For Georgie, this move is shocking. He isn't ready for it, and the show leans into that conflict. Georgie's reaction is what many viewers might share. It feels soon, it's painful, maybe even disloyal in memory. But Mary's considering dating is not just about romance. It's about her reclaiming a part of her identity that was subsumed by grief, the part of herself that is allowed to want companionship, joy, being seen as more than someone's widow. What matters is how the show frames this for Mary. It isn't portrayed as betrayal of her late husband or a betrayal of the past. The show carefully signals that Mary is not erasing George. The memories, the love, and the grief remain. She still visits the grave, still has moments where George's absence is almost physically felt. Her children are visibly affected by her decision. Georgie, especially, is appalled at the idea. That tension is necessary. It highlights how moving on doesn't happen in a vacuum. Every step Mary takes forward causes ripples. It raises complicated family dynamic questions. How does Georgie see his mother's identity now? How does Missy see her mom venturing into life beyond her loss? These intergenerational perspectives matter deeply in the way the storyline is being built. Mary's willingness to start dating isn't just about her emotional needs. It's also symbolic of the show's approach to grief, that after loss, there can still be life, connection, laughter, possibility. Georgie and Mandy's first marriage is expanding on young Sheldon's legacy in this way, not dwelling forever in sorrow, but exploring how people rebuild. There's also comfort in the idea that time has passed. The show takes care to mark that it's been more than 1 year since George passed. It's enough time to hurt, but not enough time to be past grief. That in-between is where Mary is now. It's uncomfortable, but it's real. Another important element is how Mary's children are involved in this process, especially Georgie. Mary's first episode back in Season 2, when the question of her dating arises, finds Georgie reacting sharply. For Georgie, the idea feels preposterous. The idea that his mother might choose another man seems disrespectful to the memory of his father. He feels loyalty not only to George, but to what George represented in their family: stability, provider, the backbone. Mary dating threatens that memory in Georgie's mind. It's natural. The show doesn't villainize Georgie for this reaction. Rather, it treats his resistance as something to be understood. For him, love and loyalty are tangled. He's protective of his mother. He's still grieving in his own way. So Mary's forward movement also prompts fractures, conversations, sometimes conflict. It isn't easy. Emotionally, part of Mary's journey also involves faith, guilt, self-forgiveness. There have been scenes and interviews that reflect Mary being angry at George's death, not in the sense of blame, but in the sense of feeling that she failed somehow, or that things were finally going right for him when he died. That moment when George got the dream job at Rice, when things were aligning, Mary had supported him. Potential move, life changes. And then the abrupt death. It leaves Mary with what-ifs, regrets, sometimes even resentment. Guilt is a natural side effect. Guilt she was okay, guilt she didn't see signs, guilt that maybe she should have pushed harder for help or health. Part of moving forward is working through guilt, acknowledging it, letting it go somewhat. The show seems ready to explore that. The idea that Mary starts dating isn't just about finding new love, but asking herself, does she deserve happiness again? Was love something she lost, or something she postponed? Those are heavy hallways to walk in. As Mary tentatively starts looking outward, the show also explores how she balances honoring George's memory with stepping into possibility. Memory plays a big role. Objects, rituals, anniversaries, the grave, photos. Mary holds onto George's legacy, his stories, the things he valued, what he taught Georgie and Missy. When she considers building something new, she doesn't want to erase those. The writers are showing that you can carry love in memory while life continues. The memories are no less valid for moving forward. They become part of your new identity. So Mary's forward steps will always be tethered to the past, not as chains, but as threads. We can expect complications. The show wouldn't do this if it were easy. Dating again after loss is messy. There's emotional vulnerability, fear of judgment, fear of being seen as disloyal, fear of failure. Who does Mary date? How does Georgie feel about that person? How does Missy feel? How do the neighbors, friends, church, social expectations respond? The show has already teased Georgie being shocked by the thought. Mary's internal hesitation will likely be shown, conversation with friends, with family, moments where she questions whether she's ready, whether she's betraying George by wanting something for herself. These are exactly the moments the show needs and seems willing to show because that makes the storyline genuine. Another dimension is faith and community. Mary has always been deeply invested in community and faith life. In Young Sheldon and carried into the spin-off, faith was one of her anchors. After George's death, faith becomes both solace and a place of tension. Can she believe in joy again? Can she trust that the future holds something good? The community around her will both support and maybe judge. Mary's return to dating will likely intersect with her involvement in church, in family, in social expectations for widows. The show can explore how faith can be both a support and a source of pressure, what people expect of her as Mary Cooper. That tension adds depth to her moving on. It's not just about Mary's feelings, but about roles. Widow, mother, community member, woman with needs. What this likely leads toward is Mary redefining her identity. Before, Mary was wife, mother, partner. After George's death, she's widow, parent, alone in many decisions. As she starts to date again, there's a reclaiming of Mary as herself, someone with desires, needs, a future. The show seems poised to show Mary growing, not by forgetting George, but by integrating the loss into who she is. There's strength in that. There's a kind of courage in acknowledging grief, and then letting life touch you again. Ultimately, Mary moving on has ramifications for Georgie and Missy, and for their relationships with her. Georgie has been thrust into increased responsibility. Mary dating could feel to him like his role is changing again, from son to protector, or him having to manage expectations for his siblings. Missy may feel uncertain, jealous, hopeful, or even curious. The family dynamic will shift. Some relationships may get strained. Mary might lean on Missy or Georgie for emotional support, not always successfully. Some moments will be tender, some raw, some uncomfortable. What I think the show is preparing us for is a Mary who steps into life with more courage. She'll go on a date. She'll be nervous. She'll have moments where she stops and remembers George, feels sad, maybe even regrets, but also moments where she laughs, where she feels seen, where she allows herself to hope. Georgie and Mandy's first marriage gives us time to see that process. It's not overnight. It's imperfect. It's human. In the end, Mary moving on doesn't mean letting go of George's memory. It means allowing the possibility that love and companionship, joy and pain, past and future can coexist. It means letting her children see that grief shapes you, but it doesn't define all your tomorrow. Mary's journey in Season 2 is one of reconciliation with the past, with herself, and with the hope that life beyond loss is possible. And that's what makes this storyline resonate, because so many of us know grief and the fear of moving forward. Mary's journey shows that moving forward is not forgetting, it's choosing what parts of love you carry and which parts you leave. For more videos, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel.